And if that's the way they rationalize it, so be it. See, the problem is that we live in a world where people think they own black men and their thoughts.
But it does mean that you should pay attention and contribute in any way that you can. Stay informed. Write letters or make phone calls on behalf of an issue that you care about. If electoral politics isn't your thing, continue the tradition so many of you started here in Michigan, and find a way to serve your community and your country.
Barack Obama has a history of kind of chastising, specifically black men.
And today, Frederick is a family man, and a working man, and a Morehouse man. And that's what I'm asking all of you to do. Keep setting an example for what it means to be a man. Be the best husband to your wife, or your boyfriend, or your partner. Be the best father you can be to your children, because nothing's more important.
And like the question is whether what he said is relevant, right? Because there are a few black men, like there are a few white men who are more conservative than black women, and more white men are conservative than white women. But the point is, does this work, right? And there's no evidence that it's true or that it works. And he doesn't do that with, like, you've never heard him say, why don't you white women stop being racist and vote for me?
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
Or Kamala Harris, or they don't talk to Hispanic voters or LGBTQ voters. It's only specifically black men.
We have not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers.
That he takes this tact that doesn't work.
Why do you think that is?
Because you know why.
And on the other side, you have someone who has consistently shown disregard, not just for the communities, but for you as a person.
And I've heard a lot about there needs to be a very specific agenda to black men. Okay, so I'll ask the two of you, what is that? What is the specific agenda to black men that is so drastically different than black women?
And you're thinking about sitting down? I'm not. But, Cousin Pookie might be.
Because
tell me.
The second most loyal, the most progressive group of men on the planet, they don't care about. They assume that they have their vote.
In this piece, the brother said there's a perception that the Democratic Party is a party of women. Because, I'm telling you, I've heard this. A lot of brothers are bothered by when they hear black girl magic. And I'm just, if we're gonna do with perceptions, I've heard this. I've heard brothers say, all I'm seeing are women being appointed and being touted. And I then go, okay, so they've done 200 federal judges, 58 black, 37 black women, 21 black men. I then ask them, how many existing federal judges are black men compared to black women?
And they don't have to do anything for it. And the point of this is that if you don't vote for Kamala Harris and you're a black man, something must be wrong with you. That is the subtext of everything that they're saying.
The problem is that we live in a world where people think they own black men and their thoughts.
Sometimes I wrote off my own failings as just another example of the world trying to keep a black man down. I had a tendency sometimes to make excuses for me not doing the right thing. But one of the things that all of you have learned over the last 4 years is there's no longer any room for excuses.
In the heat and emotion of an election cycle, there are simply some things that you don't pick up on because there's so much coming at you. And of course, someone like myself, you can see the gray in my beard. I've seen several election cycles, and then you start to notice trends. And one of the trends you start to notice, especially as I am a black man myself, is that there is a special way that the black male electorate is spoken to.
So why do you think that uneducated white women voted against their reproductive health freedoms and would support the majority of his community?
White women like being called uneducated white women.
You can hear the difference in the commencement speech at Morehouse in 2013 and 3 years prior at University of Michigan. The tone is different, the subject matter is different, the implication of what you should do to better your country and community is different, and you're hearing a conversation saying that there are no excuses, which is great, but is directed to one group specifically.
I understand there's a common fraternity creed here at Morehouse. Excuses are tools of the incompetent, used to build bridges to nowhere and monuments of nothingness. Well, we've got no time for excuses. Not because the bitter legacy of slavery and segregation have vanished entirely, they have not. Not because racism and discrimination no longer exist. We know those are still out there. It's just that in today's hyper-connected, hyper-competitive world with millions of young people from China and India and Brazil, many of whom started with a whole lot less than all of you did, all of them entering the global workforce alongside you, nobody is going to give you anything that you have not earned. Nobody cares how tough your upbringing was. Nobody cares if you suffered some discrimination. And moreover, you have to remember that whatever you've gone through, it pales in comparison to the hardships previous generations endured, and they overcame them. And if they overcame them, you can overcome them too.
Specifically speaking, it's a great speech. I think that speech would be incredibly motivating to hear for a lot of people on a day that's very special to them. But the audience of that speech is Morehouse College, the premier college for black men in America. And the no excuses is a great speech to be had. I'm not going to say it's not, but I only question, is that a speech for everyone or just for graduates of Morehouse College? Is this a speech that would have been said at University of Michigan? Probably not. Why? Because he wants their votes. The difference is the black male vote is expected.
There's a lot of black men in here, and I don't mean to, not talk to other people, but this is important. Our black men, we got to get them out to vote. That's number one. We got to make sure we help black men understand that. So that's why I'm here, to make sure I help black men understand. First, get out and vote, and then vote for the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris.
It goes without saying that it's an honor and a privilege to be able to use footage from the conversation between Dr. Hasan Johnson and Dr. Tommy Curry in this video, but they're speaking to the root cause of why one demographic specifically is not argued to as in, we'll do X, Y, and Z for you if you support us. It's more just, you are supposed to vote a certain way, and if you don't, we're going to blame you for the outcome of the election, which of course we saw wasn't the fault of black men to begin with. But there's a root cause for that, and Dr. Tommy Curry and Dr. Hasan Johnson get straight to it.
Rather than a Democratic Party that's going to be led by this, woman of color, right? And if that's the way they rationalize it, so be it. See, the problem is that we live in a world where people think they own black men and their thoughts. They think that if you call a black man, this is why I said that these rhetorics around black patriarchy, et cetera, are managerial strategies, right? They think if you insult a black man, which has the effect of, at least in the academy, right, and in activist spaces, has the effect of getting them dismissed or not hired or punished. It's a way to discipline them. These are disciplinary discourses, right? Outside of that, black men should be able to have the freedom to think or vote the way they please, right? It's not a immoral stance to politically disagree with a liberal or a feminist, but for black men, it is cast in the public as if every black man that doesn't do what the Democratic platform says is fundamentally against his people, fundamentally against women, or fundamentally self-hating. And like I said, I adamantly disagree with black Trump voters. adamantly disagree with them. But at the same time, I'm not going to sit back and simply moralize their position as if they're the ones that condemn the black race and the Democratic Party somehow was going to save it. Right. And this is what I meant when I say that they're symbols. We act as if the Democratic Party is not white supremacists. We act as if the Democratic Party is not organized to put forth policies and positions that disproportionately, almost exclusively benefit their white liberal constituency, right? So if that's true, then I have to also understand that there are going to be certain policies, certain issues, certain kinds of representational matters that do not affect or do not benefit black people to the full extent that it could, and in many cases disadvantage black people, especially black men. So in that world, can I be that upset with a black man who says, I'm getting off this train route?
The essence of the idea behind Passport Bros, SYSBM, Blue Book Gentlemen, IBMOR, if you will, is that there is a new group of black men that are thinking differently because we're looking for results that would give us a better outcome, because we are seeing in the environment that we're in, what has been done before us is not as effective as it would have been 50 some odd years ago. And of course, in a community where we're expected to vote a certain way, it is something that's going to cause a stir. Basically, in the black community, we're not marrying as much as we were before 1960. And so for 3.5 years, people do what they want. And then at the end of that time period, right before the election,
when I say, can I kick it, you're going to say what?
Hey guys, come together because we're supposed to.
When I say, can I kick it, you're going to say what?
But we're not building the families the same way. We're not interacting the same way. And so when that happens, our politics are bound to change. Now, in a society where we have two choices, that makes it more difficult to make a political choice because basically it's not an easy one. But it does speak to the fact that if we're going in a different direction, then everything about us is going to change. And it's almost borderline stupidity to meet up at the beginning of an election cycle and say, all right, guys, let's come together, kumbaya, vote for us. And by the way,
can I kick it?
You're supposed to vote for us because we told you to. It doesn't work anymore.
I'm disappointed.
Let's delve into that, because I've been voting third party for almost a quarter of a century now, as of next year. And so for me, I wasn't really particularly impressed with either party. But I did notice was the way black men were being framed. So one of the first things I noticed was, as soon as Kamala was the front runner, I started to see reports and media talking heads already claiming that black men were going to ruin this election for black women, and they weren't going to support Harris, even though the data going back to 2016 suggested that we were the most progressive group of men, if anything. So that was one of the first things I noticed. Then, we could also talk about Barack Obama, and I definitely want to get your thoughts about his statements toward black men, which are consistent with how he's talked to black men in the past. But at this juncture, right before this election, right before, the election actually took place, to make that kind of statement to black men and how that, was received, all of that being on the table, I kind of wanted to get your sense about that. But I will say very quickly, the other problem I had with how the Democrats, kind of approached this issue with black men was that the statement was that men would only vote for Trump, as you said, because of a masculinity thing. Somehow Trump was representing this masculine idea that men across race just, ran to. And my argument was, actually, I've seen the left wage war on masculinity. And what I think ended up happening is Republicans just kind of saw the advantage of picking up votes that the Democrats didn't seem to care about.
There's a meme that at this point is about 75 years old that represents how the black male electorate feels every 4 years when it comes time to petition for our votes. It's basically the same rigmarole that you're expected to do X, and what specifically are you asking for? Get in line, black men, no voting, no vucking. This whole cascade of things except, hey guys, what do you want for your vote? And I think we've reached a critical mass now where enough black men are basically saying, well, if this is the way we're going to not just do the voting process, but run our families and communities, then we're going to have to look for a different way to do it, because, quite simply put, I don't want to do it this way. I want someone to argue for my vote. I want someone to appeal to me on my behalf for what I want out of this. And if I can't get it, then what are we really doing here? And the underlying question behind all of this is, Why is it that people feel so comfortable speaking to black men any old kind of way if we're all, quote unquote, equal? That is a question that I think more and more black men are starting to wake up and ask ourselves, because quite simply put, if a group of people worked really, really hard to graduate from school, you would not get on the stage and say anything that you want out of life, you're going to have to work for because you worked to graduate college, right? Not to mention the political backlash of not just saying that at the commencement speech, but maybe even upsetting the parents. Like, why would you come here at this speech on this important day for my child and make this particular speech? You're going to pay in the voting booth. That is something that until now, black men have never really considered. But now in this new kind of political awakening of black men, there is a new set of rules. And if you want our votes, our dollars, our attention, our participation in the community, you're going to have to come with us, or should I say, come to us with more than guilt, because guilt ain't enough anymore. Especially when we see young ladies like Sky Jackson continually picking the wrong guys, and the cycle continues. And the blame keeps pointing in the same direction. The guys are asking to fix it, but you're not offering anything. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you next video. Take care, guys.